Hello, welcome to Education Roundtable. I'm Aggie Sung Tang, and today we have with us Glenn Galindo, who is out from California, and he has expertise on migrant students. So we're still continuing our coverage of No Child Left Behind subgroups, and today we're talking about migrant students. They happen to fall under multiple achievement gaps subgroups. They're Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, limited English proficiency, as well as migrant. So Glenn, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
can
you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Certainly. Our organization is a 501c3 nonprofit organization which we launched in 2002. And it's basically a vehicle for many of us who came up through migrant education to give back. Originally, it was identified that there was a need for those of us who had benefited from the help of others in migrant education. Through scholarships, through internships, basically adults that cared about us not having the personal support from parents that might have also attended higher education. So in 2002, a few of us simply thought it would be good if we united as a group and around the country provided resources for the other students who were coming up the ranks, so we could give back in appreciation.
So you yourself were a migrant student?
Yes, in California.
Okay.
And so there's three basic focuses that we have. Is to provide a referral or resource to internships, to scholarships, and service learning opportunities, primarily for graduating high school students and college students who may have had a migrant farm working background.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the demographics of migrant students, visa status, immigration status, where they go, their travel routes, if there are designated routes, a little bit more, about what's happening inside that community.
Yes, and that is an evolving community. We tend to see it as a current social issue, as a current community, but our country and most countries have a migrant community, and so it's those people in our larger national community or international community who are desperate for a means to make a living and who have limited educational background, limited skill set. And so they do the work that most of us don't wish to do anymore because we have other opportunities. And so the United States has certainly had migrants throughout, having agriculture played a big part of our economy back from the colonies to current. So current migrant community is primarily about 83% Hispanic. It really varies a little bit around what part of the country. Some of the immigrants from the Caribbean and actually some immigrants from abroad in the East Coast primarily, or sometimes in Washington as well, where we have Russians and Eastern Europeans in the Northwest, where we have members from the Haitian community or other Caribbean countries in Florida and in the South, and some Asian community in the Northeast, but a bulk of about 83% is estimated are Hispanic, and most of those from Mexico are current generation of migrant farm workers. Now, it's a split community because we are talking about the individuals doing the work. Most, although we do have some youth involved, most are the parents, most are the fathers. And so while they may be undocumented, maybe half or so, and that's not an exact estimate, a lot of the children, maybe 2/3 U.S. born citizens. Yet they're still dealing with the effects of being migrant, of working through the year, different streams or routes, where you have a map behind me, and so you'll see basically California, Texas, Florida are the larger home fronts where the families may reside, if not go back to their home country during winter. And the streams are going up the states, basically, where the California folks might go up to Colorado, Oregon, Washington, or in the east from Texas might go up the Midwest, or Florida base might go up to New Jersey, Michigan, through the Carolinas and so on. But the common thread is that the labor that their parents and the students do either throughout the year or seasonally.
And so we have families that the parents are undocumented citizens here or undocumented residents here in the United States, but the children are US born citizens. So when you get into that sort of situation, I heard of cases where the parents get deported, but the children remain in the United States. I mean, is that something that is just kind of a myth, or does that really happen? Have you seen it?
It does happen. It does happen in recent years, probably due to the economy and just other political and social reasons. It's probably happened more. But yes, it does happen. It does happen, and families are split. Many of those will still return, but through hardship, hard cost, a huge portion of what they may have earned or may earn in the future to get back. So it's a huge traumatic situation for a family.
What happens to the children when the parents get deported? I mean, especially when they're very young, like 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, we're not speaking about a majority, but about situations where it can happen. And there's extended families. A lot of these immigrants and migrants have their families with them. So it'd be, the aunts, the grandma, the cousins, and so. However they solve that situation, it's certainly not pleasant. It certainly is chaos in the family and a difficult, hard cost.
Okay. Now, when you mentioned the routes that the migrant children take, and we have them in New Jersey also, there's a little town in New Jersey called Sicklerville, New Jersey, which is known for its blueberry seasons. Mm-hmm. And the migrant workers come in, and then when the blueberries are all done, then they leave. And it's a very short season. Blueberries don't last very long. So we kind of wonder where the children are going, and just from the perspective of a parent and an educator, is that if you have these children coming into New Jersey for say 3 months in the middle of the school year, and then they go off to wherever else that they go to, the curriculum's all different. They're probably in need of ESL. They're probably in need of a lot of things, but the core curriculum for all the different states are various right now. I mean, they're trying to get it together. I think the 46 states have agreed to come up with a common core curriculum, but that's only in the inception stage. It's nowhere near close to completion. So what do you do in the meantime to give these kids what do you recommend to give these kids a chance at a consistent education or an education period, whether it's consistent or not? What are your organization's thoughts about that topic?
Mm-hmm. Well, Angie, there's no simple solution, and there's hardly ever a uniform that applies to all. The students that you see passing through as their family does work in New Jersey are probably headed up to Michigan afterwards, and they're probably from Texas or Florida. Those are probably Mexican American or Haitian that you see go through there, and they will attend 3-4 schools during that year, and depending whether the parents follow the same route, have expected or guaranteed work the following year, they might do a different route the next year. So there is no simple solution that I doubt anyone can really come up with, because we're talking about an effect, a result of an economic issue that the family is having to survive through. That's the work they do. That is what they know. Most likely, the parents are lucky to maybe have gone through elementary school. My parents did similar work, and so my dad went to first grade and my mom to third grade. So loving and hardworking and intelligent people, but without preparation, your options are limited. And so these families, that is what they do. So what we hope to do as our organization is to remain in contact not only with the students but with the families and migrant education professionals, so that these students know that they can bounce back. Many times one hopes as their family matures, the children of older age, certainly as they go into middle school, high school, that they can stabilize, because not having the consistency of relationships in school with teachers, with peers, with the curriculum is damaging. We promote higher education. The challenge is, unless you're thinking about in preparing academically, taking exams, taking the right courses, earning the right grades, unless you're planning to attend college, it's difficult to simply decide as a senior that you want to go to Princeton University. That has to be a long-term plan. And with all these challenges impeding you to do that, it's difficult to prepare to be admitted, to be successful, should you choose to go to Princeton University. So our hope is that the migrant education professionals, educational districts as a whole, everywhere, that they realize that these are bright, hard-working kids who truly learn what hard and difficult work is early on in age. Not just because they watch their parents, but because many of them do it themselves. Whatever help we can give them, whatever extra hand, whatever ability we can extend to them, so that in their critical years, especially going from middle school to high school, that transition, we have to do everything we can so that they can, in spite of all these challenges, so that they can begin to look towards college. At least with that focus, they can mitigate to the best of their ability the next few years, so that they're in the right classes, so that they are earning the right grades, so that they are seeking those opportunities to prepare them, so that they may have the option to attend higher education. That's our goal. Again, I'm not sure if there's a single solution. There probably isn't for every state in our nation, with all these various, very fluid year-to-year changes that these families have to go through. But it is very possible, and myself, many others have survived it if there's parents, and those we usually can count on, that they want higher ed. But we got to make sure that the professionals around these students don't discard them, don't assume, don't ignore, don't simply see them as the passing kid, but go out of their way to address that the student is thinking, and if they are, that we support them, that they are going to go into higher education. Because, and here's the thing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the hard labor and that they do. We need them to do it. What we also need them to have is the opportunity for them to better themselves, for those parents' hard work to pay off, so that the children have a different life experience. Again, in my personal contact working with migrant education students, about 3/4 were U.S. born citizens. So they are a community that's very much part of all of our communities, and we simply cannot discard, because they can be very successful, and we ought to ensure that the hard work the parents are doing for all of us, for our economy, for our nation, has its rewards, and that's for their children to reach higher education.
So I'm going to ask a little bit about your personal life. what do you think were the key factors contributing to your educational success?
I was very lucky because my parents made a conscience focus that as we participated in the labor, it was a limited stint. That they always were very explicit that our job was to be successful in college. And so, I was lucky that there was professionals, and that's probably the biggest thing, professionals around me that did recognize an ability and that they pointed me in the right direction, that they put me in the right class, that they encouraged long-term thinking. Because although my parents were well-intended, they didn't have the personal experience to have a discussion about higher ed, about colleges, about scholarships, about internships, about careers. They could not. So that's where I was lucky that there were professionals around me in high school and later on in college that were good coaches and mentors to me.
And when you were going through, usually it's around middle school where, most U.S. families start, especially in New Jersey because we're just such a academically oriented state. That's around middle school that parents start fretting about college. Actually, some families start fretting about college and when the kids are in preschool, but that's where we won't talk about them. Once it's around middle school, but most of these families know that college is within financial reach. I mean, it'll be difficult. They might have to take out some loans. They might have to, go out of their way to shave their costs a little bit, but it's still within reach. When you talk about the migrant student population, college education for even just the ones who are not migrant, just the stayed Latino communities within New Jersey, college is not even financially feasible. It's just not there. How would you recommend that these families get over the financial of college?
Sure. That's a very good point, and this is probably relatable to all communities. There's two parts to that. One is it's not so much that it's out of reach, because this is what the student has to understand, and it's the biggest challenge. A student with very good grades, a student who is in a perhaps math and science field will probably have doors open for them in terms of scholarships, internships. They'll be recruited. Now, there's a challenge because a student going into health, sciences, engineering, math will probably have to been prepared throughout high school to go into that field. It's difficult for a young person who all of a sudden say, I think I'll study engineering, but they didn't take the college preparatory classes during high school. That's a huge challenge, and that's where preparation is key. And for the understanding that high grades pay off. That the challenge there is if you are a young person in your household and your parents went to elementary school and you spend your time moving around high school to high school, different states, or even if you stayed put, but you go home and you have absolutely no one to coach you, to mentor you, to give you a perspective, a reality, a sense of a different environment rather than the one you grew up in, rather than the one that you share in your household, it's difficult for you to understand these things. So many of the students that I've had, when even we approach them, say with a scholarship, but we tell them, listen, the school year is going to cost you, I'll just pick a random number. The school for freshman year is going to cost you $20,000. And we have a scholarship here for $5,000, and because of your low income, you qualify for a Pell Grant. That's another $5,000, but you'll have to borrow $10,000 for your first year. You tell that to a family whose income is $25,000. All of a sudden, you're asking them to consider something huge.
Right.
that may not be something they can accept as a part of the process to getting a college degree. So all low-income families deal with that situation, and especially when you're dealing with a laborer who works contract to contract without certainty about the future. You're not in a career. It's even more daunting. So it's more of a perspective challenge because, again, a good student with a high GPA in the right major can have doors open for them, but they would have had to prepare. Maybe they'd have to understand that they'd have to go to a different part of state or another state to go to maybe another college community. So all these navigation thinking process, they need coaching, they need mentorship, and that's where the professionals hopefully are the difference makers for this youth.
Okay. So so let me just make sure that we're all on the same page. Is that these children need to have the sight of college first, and many of
Yes.
these children don't have that in their sight.
It's not just sight, but the sense of belief. I have a daughter. I have a graduate degree. Her mother is a school teacher. My daughter, who's 13, has grown up now around education. She's grown up on visiting and being part of life on different university campuses. Her reality completely expects. She's self-aware. She expects she's going to go to university, of course. When I go into a group of 100 migrant students in high school, and I ask them during a presentation, who's going to college? I might get 7 or 8 raise their hand. And those are people, the few, that have some certainty. The rest is just, it's outside of the reality. And the migrant lifestyle provides extra challenges that they have to overcome. The socioeconomic coming with parents of little education is the reality that hampers all students who come from low socioeconomic, low education backgrounds.
Okay.
So they have to believe, and that's the challenge of the educator, of the professionals. That's our aim, is to provide the belief. There's one reason we focus on internships so much, because we want to give them the practical, real, hands-on experience that changes their view of their own life, that they can see themselves. Wow, I just followed a project manager for the summer in Nike or Target or Microsoft in an internship. Wow. All of a sudden, their reality has changed. Unfortunately, we can't do that until they are entered in college. It's that high school and middle school group that at the mercy of a little bit of luck that they have professionals around them that go out of the way to help them change their reality and not just sight, but really believe I can go to college. Only then can they start dealing with how do I cope with all this moving around with the different teachers, with the different curriculum, because I'm going to college. Only then can they problem solve. How can I cope with this situation? And that's the huge challenge right there.
So, so you're staying in contact with these students while they're going from state to state. How are you keeping in contact with them?
Well, ourselves, again, most of the work we do is with high school seniors. Migrant education is state and school district level structure. And so they and the school counselors and teachers, they're the ones that we hope and we expect, and many do a wonderful job doing that with the students. Ourselves, by the time we are in contact with the student, is they're actually looking for resources to go to college. So we get to deal with a few that make it through and who are looking for those opportunities.
Okay, so you're interfacing with the ones who were able to cope with the migrant lifestyle, and they're the
Correct.
ones who are going to make it in. I see.
Yes.
Now, you know, how young are these children when they start this migrant lifestyle? Are they when they're first born and then they're part of it, or is it, midway through? It depends on when the parents got here. It's.
Sure. There's 860,000 K through 12 students that are considered migrant, and so you have every variance in that group.
Okay. And the teachers when you talk to the students who did make it to the college level and they're ready to go in, did they say anything about their educational experiences that were in common? Like, did they find themselves, on a particular route maybe, and all of them were on that route? Or were they running into certain types of curriculums that were very consistent wherever they went to? Were there any commonalities between the students who are making it in?
Well, I suppose the routes are, the only commonality is that most don't go east to west. Most go up and down, up in the states. The West Coast folks will go California or Oregon, Washington. They typically end up at the same schools as maybe they have developed relationships with the ranchers, with the contractors, with extended family. Most would like to set roots somewhere. And keep in mind, those parents, the reason they're doing this is for their children. And so they would like to very much provide that stability. And so many do end up setting roots along the route. And some don't. Some are here to just earn some money and go back to primarily Mexico for part of the year, winter usually, or whenever there is no work. But although that's happening less and less because of how more difficult it is to cross the border, and there's fewer and fewer work.
Right. I read some articles about families from very poor parts of Mexico, and this was about maybe 20, 30 years ago, where the father would come to the United States, work their agricultural work, and send the money back home, and then their family would actually move to better neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods would then develop and create school systems and what have you. And the father would just come back on a regular basis to visit them. So that's not the case anymore. It's changed.
Oh, well, you really have every situation, Angie. And in fact, most of the migrant workers are the dads as a majority. And so some of the work that youth will do is actually more seasonal than migrant, where those families have set some roots. So you really have every situation.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And this has been a very educational discussion. And I hope that we can stay in touch and so we can exchange some more information.
Thank you very much for sharing the plight of the migrant farm worker with your audience. They are our community doing something very important that we need them to do. But that should not stop us all from caring about them. And the most important thing is let that work pay off for those parents and helping the youth, those bright and hardworking, mostly American citizen youth, to reach higher education. That's our hope.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Glenn.